Let's settle for the news now. And in our first story, a 64-year-old retired lecturer of the Dr. Hilla Limann Technical University, Stephen Mani, met his untimely death when he was hit by a stray bullet, allegedly fired as a result of a suspect's scuffle over a parcel of land. Now, 4 other persons who were also not part of the dispute were also hit by the bullets and are in critical condition at the Wa Municipal Hospital. The suspect, Alhaji Inusa Abdul Rahman, was later apprehended by the Wa police and is helping in investigations. JoyNews' Upper West correspondent went to the suspected crime scene and now reports.
A rather usual, busy, but quiet street located few meters away from the Wa Snit flat and opposite the Frames fuel station turned bloody Thursday afternoon. 5 persons who had no connection with the alleged family land dispute and head in opposite directions of the road were allegedly hit by stray bullets.
When they went to the local Cinco, or the scene of crime, they met a young man by name Abdul Yunusa, aged 61 years, at the local Cinco. Now he is with the police, whilst investigation is underway. Primarily investigations that we had means that there was a scuffle on land or land issue among the family or between the two. But we can't base on that until investigation proves otherwise. So we are investigating the issue.
Persons who were closer to the scene of the incident, upon hearing the sound of the pump action gun, allegedly took to their heels, including this private security person.
I fear their gun. When I say the pole, I'll fear them. That's why I didn't go to funeral every time. I fear the gun. When the gun pull, I fell down. This I go to far away before they make the gun.
One of the 5 persons who was allegedly hit by a stray bullet and pronounced dead on arrival at the Wa Municipal Hospital was retired lecturer of the Dr. Hilla Limann Technical University, Stephen Mani. Stephen Mani, on retirement, also operated a drinking bar about 400 meters away from the scene of the incident. Teary-eyed Precious could not believe his ears when news about the passing of his grandfather was told to him by a friend.
I say I can't believe what has happened. I thought it was all just like, because those guys, we are all just guys. So I said, okay, let me just pick bike and get there and see what has transpired there. So that the people were digging a foundation, it's foundation there. So that, like, they have land issue. So all of a sudden they started shooting guns and he was shot was shot dead. So that was what has happened.
His colleague lecturer at the university, James Dugra, is yet to come to terms with what has transpired.
Mr. Mani was a very lovely lecturer. He was taking charge of shorthand and whatever. In fact, he's a very calm person. And this sad news, I think that the due process of the law must take place so that it will make all of us rest. We are now all living in fear because daytime shooting is not the best. Whether it was a warning shot or whatever, but it shouldn't be pointed at a very calm person like that. He just went on retirement, yet he was sacrificing to come and take the people through because his subject area is not easy to get somebody to replace him. So he is still our colleague, our senior colleague, and in fact, it's a very sad moment for everybody.
The other 4 victims who were hit by the stray bullet had various degrees of injuries on various parts of their bodies. One of them required an emergency surgery to remove pellets and also to arrest inbleeding of the blood. 19-year-old level 100 student of Simon Diedon Dombo's University of Business and Integrated Development Studies, Irasun Hamad, is one of the 4 sufferers. So he told me what transpired.
My mom said I'll go for my course registration. So when I was coming, this man was standing and he was shooting some other men. So when I saw that he was shooting from where I was coming from, so I parked the motorbike and I wanted to run. So when I was running, he faced me, like he pointed a gun at me. So he shot my hand. So like I was also wearing a black pullover, so I was still running. So I went and jumped over a wall and I was going. At that moment I couldn't feel that there was something in my body. But a woman came and asked me to stop running. So when I stopped, I could feel that my arm became a little bit heavier. So when I removed the jacket to see, I saw that there was a bullet in my hand, and I was wearing my jeans too, and I saw that another one entered my thigh.
According to the police, they have started investigations on the issue and will get to the bottom of the matter. Meanwhile, the remains of the 64-year-old former lecturer of the Dr. Hilal Liman Technical University has been deposited at the Wa Hospital morgue pending autopsy. Rafiq Salam's report from Wa.
We veer into our next story, where the chairman of Parliament's Roads and Transport Committee, Kennedy Osei Nyako, says if Ghanaians are complaining about economic hardship, then government should suspend free SHS, school feeding, planting for food and jobs, and other flagship policies and resources directed to other productive sectors of the economy. Ghana's economy is currently in dire straits, with the president chairing a summit of his government to decide on the best course of action to fix the economy. He argues that by suspending these programs, government can save between 5 and 6 billion Ghana cedis.
That I say, if I have the power to advise government, I will tell government that why don't you suspend this 5 let's say social intervention program.
What are these 5 specific?
Well, you say you've read they've read. I mean, I was saying that why. Well, those people who are benefiting the school free SHS, those benefiting the NAPCO, those benefiting the teacher training allowance, those benefiting planting for food and job, if they are not showing some kind of appreciation, they don't see that what government is doing is a form of sacrifices, and they are still calling on government that things are very tough. Government should take a decision that let me suspend and move that fund, save that money, and move it to areas that they think that these people will have that kind of will improve, their economic condition will improve, and that is what
was a major campaign policy.
So if the people
want government to
if the people that the government is spending, do you know how much government spends each and every year on free SHS? This year is more than 2-point-something billion. And still yet, if Ghanaians are not appreciating what the government is doing, you still want government to invest, put that money there. And they are complaining. So that is why. So that is why I want to save that money. Where do you want government to get additional money to go and do those things? So we'll save this money and move to areas that will be able to bring that kind of relief to the people. The people say food prices are going up. The people say fuel prices are going up. So if government is able to suspend this and save almost about 5 to 6 billion and put it in those areas, that will bring relief. Maybe in the future when things have settled, we have recovered fully from the COVID, and things economically, globally has come down and things have picked up, maybe government can go back.
Well, this is a position that former chairman of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Professor Stephen Adey, endorses. Speaking on Upfront on the JoyNews channel Wednesday, the economist said too many resources were being expended on the program. Now, he wants a review so that some schools would be allowed to charge fees.
The Ministry of Education alone and the Ministry of Health for the teachers and nurses take so much from the government budget. If you add debt, we have practically nothing. If you are making a road, you have to go and beg for money. And of course, nobody is happy. Everybody wants higher salary, they want, and there's almost an automatic increase. Everybody who comes from school of education, college of education, has to be employed. So that structural rigidities in our system makes it such that there's very little room to move. And despite all the advantages of free SHS, it has even worsened it. Because now about 7.5 or 6 billion immediately goes into it. I think that free SHS is wonderful, because if it was there, I would have gone to secondary school, not teachers' college. So, but we have to look at it again. I think that there are certain schools which we should make them autonomous and fee-paying, and people will go there, but then make sure that there are good community schools for everybody else. So the Chimoters and the Wegehe, which people want, they are only exclusive for them. Because by accident they went there, their children must go there, let them pay. So they may be...
But these are the best schools we have.
Yes, so keep it best, let them pay. But use the money you are using there to make the other schools also best.
Basically, you are pricing out the poor.
No, you are doing the opposite. Because only a small proportion of the poor come to Achimota.
Yeah.
Let the rich go there and pay.
Well, the minority in Parliament has filed a motion for a bipartisan probe into circumstances leading to the killing of two policemen allegedly involved in bullion van robberies in the country. In a private member's motion signed by ranking member of the Defense and Interior Committee, James Agalga, and Medina MP Francis Xavier Sosu, it stated that considering the high rate of police involvement in the bullion van attacks and related killings, which they say have become highly suspicious and are impugning the integrity of the Ghana Police Service, there is the need for a full-scale public inquiry into the attacks and related murders. On Monday, March 7, 2022, the police conducted a raid at Boteman near Ashaiman. Constable Rindolph Jima and Lance Corporal Stephen Kweku Nyame, who had been arrested in connection with the bullion van robberies, were killed during what police say was an exchange of gunfire between some criminals and the police. Director of Police Public Affairs, DCOP Kwesi Ofori, says the two policemen were taken to the hideout of some suspects involved in the bullion van robberies as part of the investigations when they were shot dead during the exchange of gunfire.
They opened fire on the police, and the police also retaliated, and that is why we said we believe some of them might have sustained injuries and are appealing to medical authorities to provide us with needed information should they come for treatment.
Okay. When you say they opened fire on the police, who opened fire on the police?
Oh, we are talking about the criminals. We are saying
great. So those
police
criminals
cannot open fire on Israel.
Good.
We're saying that there was an intelligence-led operations, a field operations, that the two sustained injuries.
Finally, I just want this to be very clear. This is because were they part of the police team that went to Boteman, or they were in Boteman, part of the criminals?
We indicated that they were under arrest, and in the course of the special exercise at Boteman, they suffered injuries, sent to police hospital, and they passed on.
So you took them to Boteman?
But we were in the company of the police.
Were you not wearing any protectives, these persons who went to, as part of the intelligence exercise?
Let me say that it depends. Even if you are in a protective gear, it depends upon where the bullet hit.
Well, let's hear now from James Agalga on the bipartisan probe into those circumstances leading to the killing of the two policemen allegedly involved in bullion van robberies in the country.
Executive hasn't shown any commitment and to having this matter investigated. And that is why we thought that, look, Parliament can deal with this. And the way to go is to file a private member's motion to have a bipartisan committee. And we want membership of that bipartisan committee to be drawn from the Defense and Interior Committee and the Constitutional, Parliamentary and Legal Affairs Committee to probe, publicly inquire into the circumstances surrounding the killing, or if you like, the murder of the two police officers who were arrested in connection with the bullion van robberies and were in police custody. And then they told us that they went on an intelligence-led operation in the company of the two police officers. And in the course of executing the operation, there was heavy exchange of gunfire. And only the two officers who were being held by the police service were the ones who lost their lives. The story on the face of it is difficult to comprehend. Now, if you consider the fact that these two individuals were implicated by the police themselves in the bullion van attacks, now they are no more it means that we're going to lose very important evidence relative to the bullion van robberies.
But I see.
Additionally, Parker, is it not troubling that the bullion van robberies clearly, from every indication, was orchestrated by elements within the police service? That is a compelling reason why we should have a probe.
But do you have the buy-in of your colleagues on the other side?
Well, this is a private member's motion.
You think they'll support the motion?
Yes, we expect them to support the motion because it is meant to achieve, something that should inure to the benefit of all. We want to restore the confidence that the public ought to have with our police service. But this particular, incident does not contribute in ensuring that public would have confidence in the police administration.
How soon do you expect the House to quickly put together a committee?
Yes. Given the sensitive nature of the matter, I expect Mr. Speaker to deal very expeditiously with this matter, compose the committee, and we would have a public inquiry. The cameras should capture the inquiry. And at the end of the day, we would help to build a police service that is capable, that has the confidence of the public, and that can deliver.
Well, on to our next story, and some members of the governing New Patriotic Party in the Kwadasu constituency have obtained an injunction to prevent the party from holding polling station elections in that constituency. The plaintiffs, Abu Mahama and Kofi Abrefa, also are seeking that the court annul the recent election and allow for fresh polls to be conducted. They say the exercise was marred by the violations of the party's constitution. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin reports.
My name is Abu Mahama, a member of the New Patriotic Party at Kwadasu. Recently, we have an election, but the elections were not conducted in accordance with our constitution. So I petitioned region and furthered it to national. They called the case, but the way the judgment was passed was not what needed to be done. But I know maybe their hands are tied. But as somebody who believes in the law and knows that the courts are there to settle issues that cannot be settled within the party, so I've taken a legal action against the party.
The Kwadasu constituency of the New Patriotic Party has witnessed a series of agitation in the past weeks. Frustrated members accused the party's leadership of plans to deny them the opportunity to contest the polling station election. Two of the aggrieved members have taken legal action against the party.
I want to stand to fight the system and make sure that the system do what is right. Otherwise, if we continue like this, it will be chaos for us in the near future, which I think will not be good for us. That's why we want the law to work. Let the law work. If the devil become even the leader, the devil cannot work because he will work according to the rule. That is what I want. I don't want anything. I want the constitution of our party to be followed. That is all.
They say the election did not follow due process.
I think for now this is the only way, because this is what happened. This is what happened when the problem came. I didn't rush to the court. I petitioned the election committee. I then went on to petition the constituency executive committee. I went to the region to petition them. I went to a national call. So when national called and said that they were mandated by NEC to sit on the case, and they called the election committee chairperson, Honorable Gifty Ohini Kunedu, and she looked into their face and said that yes, well-organized elections were conducted in Kwadasu. Meanwhile, nobody voted. Nobody. So if this one happens in the party and they cannot talk about it, I know the law courts are there. When we came here, the chairman was saying, oh, Monfanko, we will do what we want to do. You can go to the court. We don't care. We are in power. But I don't think we even though we are in the power, we don't control the courts. But he thinks we control them. But I know very well that the court will provide justice that we are looking for, not why he is sitting here saying.
The Kwadaso constituency executives who received the writ have declined to comment on the matter. The Kumasi High Court has set April 4, 2022 to begin sitting on the matter. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
And from Kwadaso, we draw the curtains on the AM news. But we have a lot more coming your way as we dig into the papers and talk about matters pertinent to our national life. That's up next. Do stay. Welcome to the news review segment. We're going to dig into the papers and more this morning. Joining me, Manuel Karanting, more like a brother. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. How's it going?
Yeah, but you're just up to mischief. That's the whole bit. Always up to some mischief.
All of these accusations.
Some mischief or other.
All of these accusations cannot be.
Do you want me to expose you live on air?
I mean, it's your call, because I mean,
I thought you would dare me.
It's your call. I mean, I have nothing to hide.
I would expose the sort of concoctions you've been eating.
I'm like
drinking,
an open book.
And
my life is an open book. And all those who see me on the field and speak to me can attest to the fact that
I shall spare you. I shall spare you this morning. I shall be more decorous to you than you were the other day.
That's what happens to people who have no proof of what they speak of.
Oh.
Yes, they eventually backtrack and say, "Oh, I want to."
For those of you watching, I'm just going to be nice to Manuel Granting this morning. But I just saw this post from the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And it talks about commencement of investigations in respect of recruitment to cadet officers training at the Ghana Police Academy. You remember?
Yeah.
Now, it says the Office of the Special Prosecutor has commenced full investigations into suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of the recruitment exercise of Course 51 of cadet officers at training. It talks about the investigation targeting specific cases of alleged corruption and corruption-related offenses of the use of the office for profit, abuse of office, abuse of power, favoritism, nepotism, victimization, and the selection of unqualified persons.
And you remember that this issue came up quite strongly when it emerged that about some 6 police officers really were involved in these bullion van attacks that we've seen in the past couple of months. And it really, brings to question the sort of training and so on that some of these officers undergo before they are called up into the service. I mean, it's a welcome investigation. I'd only have you have a bit
of a worry.
Well, not so much of a worry. I expect results. So I mean, this is what the umpteenth statement.
I mean, the thing hasn't even commenced. So
the point I'm making is that instead of telling us that you're commencing investigations, you should tell us that your investigations have found A, B, C, D. That's rather something I'd want to read.
That Kisia Jabing, a former lecturer of mine, by the way, is talking too much. And that he should do more and talk less. Oh, I'm going to do, have some results, palpable, something to show, and then you come to the Ghanaians, the masses, and tell them this is what we've done. But it appears I will do this.
I watched his interview on another network sometime last year, and he spoke big. And
are you worried about that? Do you think he's setting himself up for failure in any way?
Oh, well, he seemed to have had a clear picture of what he wanted to achieve in that office.
Right.
And if indeed what he said was anything to go by, we're expecting more results, at least by the end of the first half of the year. Because, I mean, quite swiftly, even after he took office, he moved the Special Prosecutor's office from its old building to the new building.
Right.
One of the actions which sort of propelled the office into now working properly, because at the time Martin Amidu had said that they were constrained and so on and so forth. We're told of clearance for recruitment and all of that. So let's see how that goes. I accept, and I am insisting again that I'd rather see a statement that says the Special Prosecutor's Office has investigated and has found A, B, C, D, than a statement that says that Special Prosecutor's Office is going to, investigate. In any case, that is the reason the Special Prosecutor's Office was set up.
Right.
And so it's almost like saying, oh, you know what, I'm going to do what you asked me to do in a statement. And I don't think that cuts for much, Ben.
It doesn't cut it for you, right?
Especially because we've seen several others from Martin Amidu, quite the same fashion. And so, I mean, it doesn't give me results.
Right. Let's also take a quick look right before we delve into the papers. How is the economy biting you personally?
Is it? So
how is the economy biting you? I mean, you don't have to fuel a car yet. You don't have to.
Well, I do.
But I know you're making certain expenses that you've taken upon yourself that
I feel like
ordinarily you wouldn't have. But
let's just stay on it. I mean,
you're taking care of some people's daughters.
Yes, I have nieces, and so I mean they are not my daughters.
Which nieces?
Nieces, my.
No. Which nieces?
Oh,
which ones?
I have.
I'm talking of the other ones.
Which other ones?
Okay, we are live on air, so you are.
Okay, so my nieces. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for watching. But
today they are nieces.
But I guess the point I'm making is that whether directly or indirectly, everybody, insofar as you commute from one point to the other, in a bid to make your ends meet, you fuel a car. Whether by trotro, whether by taxi, whether by ride-hailing apps, whether by your own vehicle, you, one way or the other, fuel a vehicle.
Did you ever anticipate that diesel, for example, would hit 11 cedis, 11 pesos? And for me, this is the first time I've heard of, I mean, people openly talking about borrowing fuel, like Miko Free.
Yeah.
Borrow fuel, and after you've made your gains, then you go and pay and add maybe 5 cedis or 10 cedis to it. I've never heard of such an instance. I'm not saying it has never existed, but to this extent where a number of drivers, commercial drivers, say we have to borrow and we're not even able to make our sales. That for me hits me. And I had never, prior to this period, I had never, looked at the liters. You know what you fill? It will tell you, for example.
I mean, you told me about it last time. For the rich
this
folks,
is 20 liters. I had never paid attention. Now I actually
now you have to,
because I know I've checked what the consumption of my car is. When it's full, how many liters will go in there? And now when I fill from the pump, I'm checking to see, okay, so today with this adjustment, how many liters am I getting?
Yeah, and
it's crazy.
And there's, a domino effect from just the increase in fuel prices. Or yesterday, we heard from the Deputy Energy Minister, Andre Japamesa, who said that the government was now considering a proposal to scrap, or if you like, suspend some 3 levies or taxes on the price build-up of petroleum products. And the question is that, I mean, did we have to wait all this while to get here? Because, I mean, when you check the price build-up, you have in excess of 2 Ghana cedis, which don't go to the core of the price of the product itself.
Right.
These are levies and taxes and so on and so forth. And I mean, at a time where everyone is crunching, at the mercy of the global economic situation and all of that, you'd have expected a bit of action sometime earlier. But we're also learning this morning that there's a high-powered government delegation.
Oh, yes.
If you like.
I was going to reserve that for later, but since you brought it up, let's do that quickly before we get
that is meeting at the Pediase Lodge essentially to brainstorm and
is this a new Senchi consensus?
If you like,
it's interesting. If you like, and how things are panning out, things that are being repeated.
The only drift is that this time round, opposition is not invited. This is government, high-powered, the executive, members of parliament, members of parliament,
economic management team,
right. Cabinet members, and leading members of the NPP. So these are party people. And we're told that beyond fashioning out a response to the economic situation, this is also to be able to align all of them to be able to defend, as it were, the policies and programs that would be churned out of this particular meeting. It waits to be seen whether or not this meeting actually becomes a panacea to the problem. Tonight, though, on Ghana Connect, we're asking a question. If you think this meeting will actually be able to solve the problem as we've seen, or eventually we should, go to...
Are you asking me?
We're asking you, and of course, our dissent...
You want to know my answer?
What's your answer?
My final answer for 3 points.
What's your answer?
I don't want to be... my bluntness might offend some people, but I'll tell you what, meetings in this country often culminate in zilch. Zero. Nothing. But I'm saying that if upon meeting, they adopt the right solutions, looking at our national context, I believe we can make a headway. So that's what I feel. If it's just going to be another one of those meetings, zero. But if they take the hard decisions, look, elsewhere in the world, people are downsizing, cutting down on executive expenditure, cutting down on expenditure across the board, the arms of government. Is our government willing to do that? Are they willing to take it up and say that the executive, maybe our salaries, we are slashing by this, we're even going to cut the numbers? Can't they cut ministers? Are you telling me they can't cut down on the list of ministers? Are you saying they can't cut down on salaries, on staffers at the presidency, for example? Are you saying that we can't break down certain things and save money? We can.
On the contrary, though, what we've seen...
Add that to some of the proposals about taking off a few taxes here and there. We can do something. But the question is, will we do it?
And on the contrary, Ben, the point I'm making is that instead of these things that you're talking about, we've had leading members of government in parliament and in executive make suggestions about actually cutting down on government flagship policies which go to affect the poorest of the poor. For instance, free SHS. We've heard Kennedy Osenyako say that, let's cut down the free SHS. Let's suspend it.
I think he was speaking sarcastically.
Well, he's
defending away, free SHS, planting for food and jobs. And He's basically saying, I saw the sarcasm in there. He's basically saying, so the social interventions that we are using money to, bring about 1D, 1F and the rest.
You don't like.
If you don't like them, let's scrap them and then use that money to channel. But
how about Ben? And if the government,
I find that distasteful and unfortunate, because you know why? You gave promises to people. You cannot say now that we're going to scrap some of the social interventions just to it doesn't, logically speaking, it doesn't follow any pattern of. I'm sorry. It means that you are failing to deliver on certain aspects. It doesn't mean that you must pull down other policies to be able to deliver. What even have been the gains, major gains from some of them? When you want to scrutinize some of them, Charlie.
And instead of scrapping free SHS, for instance, how about scrapping free fueling of the vehicles of these Article 71 office holders?
Well,
how about that? How about cutting down?
Free fuel is way, because sometimes we stretch it, and parliamentarians, for example, don't get free fuel. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about these Article 71 officers, predominantly, these government workers. So how about cuts down on that? Than cuts down on free SHS, which affects, the poor 16-year-old in a village somewhere.
For me, I think
would never make it to
I'll just put it bluntly. It was unfortunate for him to have made that statement, but it's been made anyway, whether in jest or otherwise, it's been made. Let's quickly look at the papers, Manuel. I'll start with the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Ahead of rainy season, and again, something I simply cannot take seriously in this country when we talk about dealing with, the perennial flooding and all of that. Will arrest, prosecute polluters of Korle Lagoon. In this country, we are we will, we shall, and we never do. Anyway, Works Minister warns as he inspects dredging projects. And when I sound like this, don't get me wrong. I'm reflecting what has happened over different administrations over, close to 30 plus years. Same rhetoric. How can you have a country? Look at this. Look at what you're seeing. It's pathetic. Parliament adjourned sitting for lack of quorum. Bakavoma were finally bailed. He posted two sideways, you know that, the eyes looking sideways. And you should see the likes and the comments that were posted. 2 die following renewed chieftaincy clashes in Jantong. That's it for the Ghanaian Times newspaper.
The Daily Graphic, reporting truth and accuracy every day, says stop polluting or storm drain. Maintenance cost mounting. That's Asenso Boache from pretty much the same story that you read earlier. And I think the story which, well, I was with the minister yesterday, and the story for me is that there's a major flood alert because the 10-kilometer storm drain, which starts all the way at Caprice and flows right into the ocean at the Koli exit. I mean, it was divided into 4 and 5 phases, and the first 4 phases actually have been done, completed. But when you visit these sites of these first 4 phases, you get an indication that it's almost as though there was no work at all. And this is why. Improper waste disposal. So you have this plastic debris right back into the storm drain, the silt going back into it, and then you're also having people encroaching the what you would call buffer. Yeah. Because when the silt
when you do that, the result can only be one.
Exactly.
When the flood waters hit, they will hit whatever you've put along those buffer zones. But I mean, nothing. I don't get this country really, because sometimes we complain about we have some of the best laws, regulations, but the implementation, no, we are not willing to go the extra mile. And sometimes it's because of political capital. Look, outside a typical example, Henry Kwate, Greater Accra Regional Minister, started really well. And I think he's still on a very good course. But you would realize that he's toned down on certain things from what we've heard from the grapevine. We all know some of these things are what impede the progress of the country, because you clear people from the streets, you do this. Next thing you know, your own party people are telling you, hey, my guy, Charlie, it's not inuring to the benefit of. So we'll never make any progress once we keep flip-flopping like this.
And the minister, you see, if you look at the front page of the Daily Graphic, okay, you see just beyond the lagoon, or if you like, the drain, you have a heap of sand and sawdust where you have some wooden structures there. And these are squatters. Squatters who are now encroaching their buffer zones.
So it started.
In fact, it's there. And the minister was there. So the minister is seeing it.
This is the start of how things degenerate. But they'll wait for things to degenerate, and then there will be attempts, to demolish when you could have prevented all of this when it was. You know, when you have a small sore and you don't allow it to fester, you can deal with it quickly. You allow it to fester and
stitch in time, as
gangrene and all of that, then you have a bigger problem.
So Parliament fails to approve loan agreement for second time in 2 weeks, 22-page number, and 3 ministers directed to brief Parliament on Boku on page 30. And Finance Minister here calling for credit rating reforms. I'll run you through the publisher quickly. Minister slams irresponsible waste disposal behavior. Krapa rally stakeholders for export strategy implementation. The picture of Herbert Krapa, Deputy Trades Minister. Now, Magdan Aviation losing millions of dollars over the airport company's closure of terminal. And more workers, we're told, are being laid off. The picture of the new airport's boss, Pamela Jamson Tete, and government committed to SDGs, Chief of Staff speaking. And you have Ambrose Derry's photo on 3 MPs summoned to brief Parliament on the Boku tensions, man.
Let me get into the Daily Guide newspaper. Sanction non-performing contractors. Martina Jane Mensah Kosa, pictured there speaking to the issues. Bagbin requests extra $50,000 from Dubai. That is what the Daily Guide newspaper says. Chief of Staff denies Efia Schwarzenegger's 50K donation. Have you got 50K drop into your account? I know you could have done a lot with that.
Yeah.
You could have bought a lot of fuel with
One day.
Anyway,
I could call Berry.
But you will not be bereaved in Jesus' name. So,
Amen.
Yeah. NDC plots to frustrate Parliament and openly trial back on track. But Speaking of lists, which list would you think your name would appear on any day
If what?
A list, if there were any lists that your name would appear on?
No, my name will not be on.
Yeah, you have to take a quick sneak peek at
no.
the paper. And
No. But that list, if your name appears on that list,
some are alleging. I saw Capito, Stephen Appiah, put out something that no.
Quickly.
I have nothing. In fact, she came and took a picture with me, and she here, by the way, is Abna Koko. She came and just took a picture with me and all of that. And some people said, "Oh, we believe you." But people said that, hey, if she takes a picture with you, he means.
How do you validate the list?
Anyway, how do
you validate the list?
How do you validate the list? But that's a question. People have suggested that.
But should we even be validating?
Abna should be taken on in terms of some of her pronouncements, because in the end, can you really validate, like you're saying, or authenticate that whatever she's alleging happened?
Yeah, your story is here. Special prosecutor hunts for fake cops on the Republic Press as a banner headline. Government to tackle escalating fuel prices soon.
Right.
And as GPLTU threatens to increase fares from next week and partner to fight cybercrime in Africa. Akufo-Addo hosts cabinet in crucial meeting over e-levy, fuel price hike and economic hardship. And then of course, Mbaka Vomawo release and the Republic Press reporters at Cool Coat, Hero and Coat finally released. They describe Mbaka Vomawo as a cool hero. Finally with me is the final newspaper. Ghanaian
what
TV
have they found?
The Ghanaian TV channels to go global. That's according to Information Minister Kojo Pon-Kroma. And Nana B deserves national organizer position. It's Apenyo Markin. I saw on his Facebook heaping a mammoth of praises on Nana B. Anyways, government to scale up investment to tackle road safety issues. This is according to President Akufo-Addo. And Golden Star Wasa donates $200,000 to a Piazze support fund.
Right.
And Ben, when are you bringing your donation for the Piazze rebuilding?
Me and Kasa, I need donations. I mean, not to denigrate what they're going through. Horrific. You wouldn't want to go through that. But me and Kasa, I need some donations. What are you starting with? How much Momo will you send me?
Yeah.
At least now that more taxes will not hit it, how much are you going to send?
We are what do you call them? Secret donors. So we don't trumpet our donations. But I mean, our hearts and prayers really are with the victims of the Piazze disaster.
Most definitely.
And this is something that the chiefs there feared, that the next big thing was going to pop up on the screens and in the news, and we're going to forget them and relegate them to the background.
Definitely.
I'm afraid to admit it's something that seems to be happening. Ben?
I don't think so, but we'll get there. Two papers to wrap with BNFT. There's AU to set up Africa-owned credit rating agency, and there's GMRA continues to enhance interbank liquidity funding. To wrap the custodian newspaper, Akufo-Addo bemoans high road crashes. Terrible. But now who calls out? Traffic lights not working, bad roads, and we ourselves as drivers too. And even pedestrians, Charlie, sometimes you see someone crossing, you slow down. If you watch the way the person is crossing, like taking their pretty time to...
What's your problem with somebody taking
you just have to
cross the road?
You just have to be patient, because sometimes...
That's what you need, patience. When driving,
anyway,
please, I'm looking into your eyes, ladies and gentlemen who drive on the road. If a pedestrian is crossing, have patience, please. Please.
They are now taking their time to show you what exactly they have got.
Oh, no, but
anyway, just to wrap, a great milestone to an amazing wife and mother. May this day bring you lots of blessings and happiness, lots of love. It's from your husband, Raphael, and the kids, Haley, Kweku, and Heidi, to Valerie Tanson. And to a very, very happy birthday to you. That's how we wrap on the news review. Up next, sports. Do stay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports. I am Muftau Nabila Abdullah. For the first time, there will be e-ticketing for Ghana matches, as the Minister of Youth and Sport, Mustafa Sif, revealed that electronic tickets will be available for fans during the 2022 World Cup qualifier playoff between Ghana and Nigeria at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium in Kumasi on March 25. This will be the first time e-tickets will be available for Ghana matches, or they will be sold electronically.
I think it's a commendable effort by the minister to take ticketing.
Sometimes, even when they are supposed to, there is a maintenance manual, a maintenance schedule. Even when they are supposed to write to the headquarters, that's the sports authority, they might just collect and use, which is against the law. So we are centralizing it, but we are digitizing all the collection points. And currently we are going to, and for the information of the committee, the first, the match against Nigeria will be digitizing all the ticketing points so that there will be transparency in the collection, so that whoever, the sharing will be done to all key stakeholders without any challenges, so that we can get enough to be able to maintain our facilities. I just wanted to put it to you that we are taking measures to ensure that this doesn't occur again.
Now, what are some of the benefits of e-ticketing? We hear from a marketing executive of Ticket Late, Hilary Adari, who says the move is a commendable one.
We think it's a commendable effort by the minister to take ticketing electronically or digitally. Of course, it's going to do away with the issue of fraud on the market.
Yeah.
It's going to help us account more. I mean, when we face the pandemic, you wouldn't have people going to the stadium, and you wouldn't be able to do a contact tracing of people if anything should happen. But with an e-ticketing system, you're able to check all these things electronically and then make sure that everything is accountable there. There's the convenience for the users, where buying a ticket, you do not have to go through the hustle of joining queues to get tickets, but now everything is mainstream. So just a tap on your phone and you have your tickets. With global ticketing, wherever we have our footballers going, we can follow them. Now our ministers and our football agencies do not have to think of the difficult and cumbersome way of getting tickets to people out there. But then with ticketing systems electronically, we can follow them and then we can sell the tickets for them. So we believe that it helps increase the revenue baseline of our sports industry very much. And then we're able to do away with a lot of the fraud, do away with even the carbon print of printing tickets.
Yeah,
yes.
We are going green, aren't
exactly.
we? Exactly. So there are many forms of e-ticketing. It's advanced so much around the world. Mm-hmm. Now, the question I'd want to ask is, for example, from what we know, they are going to use the short code system.
Yes.
All right. Are there other forms?
Yes. So the short code, also known as the USSD, is one of the common ways of buying tickets. Of course, it comes with its pros and cons, and you have to spend a lot of money buying the code and then issuing the code out for people to buy tickets. Yeah. We have RFID systems where we could easily have people have a card or a tag they take to the stadium and they just tap and enter. Very easy.
Easy, yeah.
Yes.
And this e-ticketing conversation is a long one because the government and the Ghana Football Association appear to have had some disagreements about 2 weeks ago. And since then, the GFA have not appeared anytime they are invited for a meeting because they presented a team to handle the e-ticketing. But unfortunately, government rejected their offer, saying that they are moving everything to Ghana.gov platform. But the GFA also insisted they wanted their agency to handle it. And since then, even just as 3 days ago, there was supposed to be a meeting, the GFA failed or refused to make an appearance for that meeting. Now, let's hear from the Member of Parliament for Talensi constituency, Benson Tongo, who is calling on the Minister of Youth and Sport to ensure that there's a construction of standard pitches across the country for the football development.
I would like to urge the Minister for Youth and Sports to think about the developmental aspect of it. The provision of first-class pitches or sports facilities. I know an attempt is being made by the National Youth Authority, but whether they are doing it to meet the international standards is also another thing. So with all these things happening in our country, and football being the soul of this country, Black Stars win and the whole country cycling is up. Morale is very high and there's peace in this country. We lose, and for days, weeks and months, we'll continue to comment on the poor performance of the Black Stars, and people who are genuinely interested in coming to develop sports will be discouraged. I want to appeal to the government that they have a responsibility in the Constitution to ensure that sports is developed at all levels of this country.
Let's do boxing now, and the president of the Ghana Boxing Authority, Abraham Kote Nikwe, has told Joy Sports he is impressed with the quality of fights in the newly introduced Professional Boxing League. The bi-weekly competitions aims, among other things, to prepare boxers locally for fights and also at the international level. And he says it has come to stay.
Something that we've been wishing for, the Professional Boxing League, have come to stay. Other promoters too, like Box Office, Cabrick, are also working very hard in addition to the league that we are doing. So for us as a GBA, we are happy, and me as a president, I'm happy that this is happening in my time. So I always say I'm a happy man. I took office and things have changed in this direction, and something that I pray that looking at the starting point will continue. It's not going to be like we'll slow down at the middle of the road. We want to finish the year with what we have started, where boxing is now becoming every week program, because after the league, the promoters are also having their fights, and you can see the quality of fights that we are having. I always say boxing is the #1 sport in Ghana, and I have to have a way to prove it. And this is the way to prove it, that if we can have the boxing event coming on every other week, it will be a big plus, even though it's very, very expensive to run a boxing show. But we've been able to put together a few sponsors are coming on board, and it's making our dream come true. We are happy, and I know the government will be happy. The boxing fund will be happy. Entire country will be happy. I sometimes walk around and women and children keep saying that boxing ain't all. So it's a credit to all of us, all the stakeholders. We've all done well because we understand each other. We put things together and look at how far we are taking the boxing. So.
Well, here we are. Thank you for staying with us as far as the big stories are concerned. This is the AM show, and we bring you germane content. That's what we stand for. Now, this morning, as we hit our big stories, we're going to be jaw-jawing on the economy of Ghana as it is right now. We're facing challenges, it is clear. Our cedi, the worst performing currency on the African continent, fuel prices, diesel as of yesterday, hitting 11 cedis, 11 pesos per litre. Unprecedented. Our cedi has lost value of about 17% in recent weeks, and there is no end in sight in terms of how exactly we're going to deal with these problems. In addition to all of that, add what is happening across the world when it comes to COVID-19, Add on what is happening between Ukraine and Russia, and it is a very, very convoluted mess we find ourselves in. But to every problem, there is a solution or solutions. So, how do we get to these solutions? Today, we are going to be interacting with someone who has been there and done that, been in the very thick of things, managing the affairs of our economy, steering us for quite a number of years. He is former finance minister, Minister of Economic Planning as well. Seth Terkper is our guest. Thank you so much. It's been a while. It's been a couple of months now. Thank you so much for making the time to join us this morning, Honorable Seth Terkper.
Good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers and to your listeners. And I hope you can hear me clearly.
I can hear you loud and clear. And again, let me just say a big thank you, because where you are, it's very early in the morning, but you've made the time to join us on the show. We are immensely grateful. Let's hit the ground running.
It's my pleasure.
I've already laid the basics of what is happening to our economy. The CD is not faring properly. Escalating Brent prices across the world have given us a hydra-headed problem to deal with. But when you look at the economy as it is currently, what do you see? It's said that someone who is playing a game does not see certain things, but the one standing behind sees better. What do you see in terms of our economy as it stands now?
Yeah, thank you very much. The situation in which we find ourselves is a bit unfortunate, not because we have not been here before, but the situation is getting, dire. But introduction, we're focusing on the current. And you talk about the person, getting the path, may not get it straight. You will agree with me that there has been a number of warnings in the past regarding the way in which, the economy, was being, handled. We would always have issues, but the candidness. And let me give you one specific example, then I can come to the current. I think most recently we were told, by no less a person than the World Bank country director, and others, that the situation before COVID was dire. I think that some of us have said that we should not blame all our problems on COVID, so that we can confront it, well. If you go to the 2019 Article 4, as we have pointed out, there was a fiscal gap of 3 to 5% that was disclosed. At the time, we were being told the economy was, doing well.
Right.
And this is quite apart from the fact that, expenditures and arrears, like the bailout costs and others, were being excluded in the calculation of, the deficit. Deficit is the revenue coming in, tax revenue, non-tax revenue, grants, less, your expenditure, which obviously goes into negative, and which is what leads you to borrow, and then you increase your debt. We were also being told how, structures like the sinking fund and others that were put in place, were not being applied very well. And so I think that there have been sufficient warning from academia and from various practitioners. But we are where we are. And where we are getting now is quite familiar. We are getting to the situation.
You say it's familiar because you've been there before?
It's because the country has been there. No, it's because the country has been there. Recall that the last time there were petrol queues in this country was 2015 going to 2016. Measures were taken to stop them, like the strategic stock, which we put in place. Now, let me take fuel. For example, you gave a background, and I think it's quite, succinct, in that apart from our own problems, the CD, depreciating, because traditionally around this time, the CD comes under pressure. But it is getting worse also because usually when we do the sovereign bond, the element that goes into the budget helps also to support the foreign exchange that is coming in to meet government expenditures and to provide some buffer for Bank of Ghana. So remember that last year we were to go to the market for 5 billion. We managed 3 billion and could not go to the market for the additional 2 billion. As we speak, we are getting to the end of March, and this is a period when government would have been on the roadshow, for the borrowing. I spoke about borrowing. The sovereign bond is an element of the borrowing that is used to finance, the budget. I don't think a program has been announced yet. We all know that the external market is virtually blocked to Ghana now. We couldn't go. The ratings are so bad. If we go, we may get something worse than the zero coupon bond. And we can explain the zero coupon bond. It's a very expensive bond that we did. By the time, again, for lack of candidness, we were told that it was a very bold initiative. We were told it had never happened in Africa. We were saying, you are giving away too much, for what Ghana is receiving. And Ghana is supposed to be paying, as we speak, 2025. Ghana is supposed to be paying the face value of that bond, which is about 550 million US dollars. The all that we got in cash for it was 350 million. So you can see the amount of money that we had to, give, to even get that money. But the excitement, overshadowed all of. Now we cannot even go to the market for that. And so because cocoa revenues, have gone down, since October, when they flew in, when I said flew, I'm sorry, when we received, it's literally flown in. And then going into the heavy Christmas season and then the expectation for profits, the narrative. The support that should have been coming. Bank of Ghana did its best by trying to spread, the money. Now, there could be some money coming in now that, crude oil prices are going high, but the same amount has to go to support the importation of the crude oil. Otherwise, we would face a situation where we don't even have the supply. So if government is able to bring it in, the question we are facing is, where is the money, to pay the subsidy? I'm trying to lay the background. Because once prices have gone beyond where it's manageable, government comes in, with a subsidy. And recall again, that since last year or 2 years ago, we started seeing a situation where, first of all, it was our tax revenue. The whole of our tax revenue was paying only two items, compensation and then interest. You remember that? Now, by the time we got into this year, it was the total revenue that was paying compensation and interest. And that means that if you take the 5 key items that constitute the budget, we don't even have money to pay for 2 of them, let alone, usually we pay for 3, which is the remainder of compensation of interest, which is called the recurrent expenditure. That is what is used to run government, to pay school feeding, to pay boarding, to pay, hospitals and the rest. That's and government offices. That's a recurrent expenditure. The balance is not enough to pay that, and then you would then go to, your capital expenditure for development. Usually, you are excused, for borrowing to pay for capital because capital is usually heavy. But now we have to pay for it. But 2 disturbing trends is that we are unable to raise our own money to pay for arrears, government arrears of from wages to, to anything. Suppliers and contractors, who have done work for government and were not paid at the end of the year. And the arrears itself has been understated. That is what the World Bank country director, was saying, and it has been understated over the years. But the most crucial is that we are borrowing instead of relying on that revenue to pay for the principal. Remember when we say it is paying for interest and compensation, the principal element is not, it means that it's not being covered. And so our inability to go to the market itself, and some of that repayment has to be in forex. So whatever money that is coming in by way of foreign exchange now is being used to service that in order that we should not default. So this is where the budget is so tight that these sums that, these expenditures which I have narrated, which most of which should be covered apart from, say, capital, including the coverage of repayment of principal, it's not happening. Okay. So the naked truth is that government lacks the resources now to provide a subsidy. Okay. Now, when we started ESLA had various components. One component of ESLA was to pay off the arrears that was owed to BDCs, oil marketing companies, and the rest, the subsidy. There was some arrears. Now, we started paying them, before leaving office in 2016. But we also started an initiative where part of that money was being used to buy crude oil when the prices were low, and then store them in the BOS, the bulk oil storage and tank company. Right. That's the essence of that company. But we had been paying lip service to it. So we started buying crude oil to put into, the tanks, so that when the prices started going up, then we started releasing. Exactly. So since you bought low, you don't have to release at a full market price. You had already paid for them. Right. Now the US, you could have heard US saying that because of the Ukrainian war and the rest, they are going to release strategic stocks. You could also have heard, China and others, South Africa. In Africa, Nigeria, oil producer, South Africa and others, they do that. So we also started. Unfortunately, that policy was also stopped, and we know what happened to the ESLA, which is why we owe so much on the energy sector. So I've tried to give a background to show that, this is not new at all. This is something that, had been coming, waiting to happen to the economy.
Right. Yeah. So it was waiting to happen, which means that we saw it coming, but we sort of waited for it to happen. And no one wants to do that, because the things we didn't anticipate, COVID-19 hit us, that pandemic. We've also had this scourge of war between Russia and Ukraine. But I want to ask a few pointed questions.
But before we go there, sorry, I'm sorry to cut it quickly. Before we go there, you see, you cannot come into office for 4 years and not expect to have crisis.
There will be a crisis at some point.
There will definitely be a crisis. And so what was the solution? Remember that when COVID hit, the first funds that we applied to COVID was not the IMF loan. The first funds that we applied to COVID was when the minister went to Parliament and asked, that the stabilization fund should be reduced and put into the budget. That was the purpose of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, right? The first time we took money from it, it was, about 11 million US dollars equivalent in 2015 when crude oil prices fell, against the background of single spine, against the background of, and there have been wars. And that's why countries see that there was a global financial crisis. There was a fall in crude oil prices. And so that is why, in the thinking of the framers of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, that fund was put in place. We got 2 additional oil fields from 2017, and we never increased that fund, right? It's a counter-cyclical fund, which you build up, when you have problems. And then when you have crisis, you reduce it. As we speak, about 370 million US dollars have been withdrawn in support of COVID. As we speak, the World Bank gave us 1 billion in support US dollars in support of COVID, all of which went into the budget. We got a special waiver. As we speak, we got SDR, 1 billion US dollars. The World Bank revealed recently that about 600 million US dollars was given to us. So if you add our own money, what is it about COVID? That
so the point is clear.
In the history, let me just learn. For the first time in the history of this country, and we have gone through bushfires, we have gone through droughts. Remember, and all those situations. For the first time, we had a government that received $5 billion US, which is more than 2/3 of what GRA brings in annually for one crisis. You know, so this is the point some of us were making from earlier on, that look, the crisis facing us is an expenditure one. You know, it's an expenditure one. We are not talking about expenditure. I think we should. You remember, former President Mahama said, let us have a national forum, if you remember, on free SHS and other government initiatives, because they are expensive. First of all, we threw oil money at it. We wanted to sweep the Heritage Fund, if you remember, 3 years ago, to support that expenditure. And then there was opposition, including some of us, that the framers of the Constitution, just as we spoke about the Stabilization Fund, had a purpose for the Heritage Fund. You cannot be throwing debt at future generations and then not give them the revenue to meet those expenditures. Right. Then we remember PIAC and others had to come in when too much of oil revenue was going to support education, because there was no balance in the four sectors. Remember the capping that was done, you know, from all IGFs and other statutory funds in support of government expenditure. When all this was not enough, we started borrowing to support free SHS and other government initiatives. We are not talking about expenditure. We must talk about expenditure. We must cut our coats according to, you know,
and Seth, I would have us go there shortly. This bit about expenditure. It's something that I'll have us go into, even as the sitting administration has its economic management team, cabinet, sit down and talk about the way forward. I would let us go into that and the sort of things we can do to actually downscale, because are we too top heavy, for example? We'll get into those. But owing to time constraints, I want us to cut into certain matters very concisely, because there are quite a number of them that we have tabled ready for you.
We can run through them.
My first bit, you've spoken about candidness, which has been lacked by this administration. Do you feel this government has lied itself and all of us into this economic distress? And I premise it on the fact that we've been told by the World Bank and its country representative, Pierre Laporte, that even before COVID, our economy was ailing, that we had problems. It's been suggested by the same outfit that our debt to GDP is above 80%. Your very own Kasilato Forsen in Parliament has suggested that by end of year, we would be hitting 90% debt to GDP ratio. So the question, has this administration lied itself and by extension all of us Ghanaians into economic distress, into the crisis we're facing now?
Well, you know that I try as much as first possible to refrain from hard language.
Yes, but I want you to be blunt. I mean, call us Peter.
Excuse me, let me rationalize it. Then that becomes, you know, the headline. That becomes the story instead of focusing on the issues. I already said that there must be candidness. I already said that and give examples.
So there was no candidness.
Yes, there has been some being economical with the truth, if you like, as it's normally said when you want to be modest about some of these things. So yes, that some accounting methods were not the best, putting bailout costs, you know, in footnotes and then claiming that the subsidy was low, excluding it from debt and claiming that your debt. And we did not pick the hint when the IMF started to adjust in 2019 and told us that our deficit was above 7%, you know, and not 3.7, 4.5, or even the 5.8 that we're talking about. So yes, there has been some economy with the truth.
Okay. Now let's look at how that lack of candidness has affected us. We're looking at the cedi, for example, and if you look at its level of depreciation within a certain period, 17% against the dollar, for example, it's slumping against all the major currencies. There is also a bit of a pushback. When you look at today's daily graphic, page 13, for example, the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, says we need to go into emergency mode to reform the global financial architecture. He talks about it from the standpoint of the credit rating agencies, the Fitches, the Standard & Poor's, the Moody's, and the rest. But in there also, I want to add our over-dollarization or our over-reliance on the greenback, the American greenback. That is a fundamental problem, is it not? And how do we manage our cedi to prevent some of these slumps if we don't manage the dollarization of our economy? Under your tenure, there were some moves to, ensure that the Ghana cedi is used for most transactions, that items, for example, houses and all of that are not purchased in dollars, but it did not work. And we find ourselves here. How much is the reality or the biting truth when it comes to our economy, the global architecture, and our over-reliance on the American dollar?
The whole world depends on the American dollar. As we speak, Russia, mighty Russia, may default on account of the financial sanctions that has been put. But
just to interject, they will not default because they don't have the money, but of what they've called artificial, an artificial manipulation, because then they will not be able to raise the sort of sums from the banks that have been affected. So it's not that they don't have the money, but
yes, but the point you are making is about the importance of the dollar. And so the Russian economy is a strong one, right? And why is it that, as it's been suggested, that fear is still there, even though they have said that they could settle their, commitments in rubles, right? And that is precisely because of the strength of the dollar. So I'm only giving you a comparison that stronger economies also bow to the dollar. Even oil-producing economies bow to the dollar. And that is on account of a country managing its wealth. Its finances well, right? Such that, they are able to capture the growth and make the dollar the currency of choice. So I'm afraid those arguments, two reasons. First of all, we are in a crisis. Yes, that is very important. That is a long-term solution. We have been, since 1970s, attempting to get a West African currency the echo. We have not been able. Let's face reality. I think we should be talking candidness now. We have not been able to meet the criteria the West African economies put together to come in with the echo we could support, the cities. So we have the dollar and we know it, and that you have to face it. And that is why you must take measures, to manage your expenditures so that you can support the dollar component of it. Yes, we can have that discussion. But the point I'm making now is that discussion, which has been thrown into the debate now, will not help us get out of the crisis. Because, rather like Russia, we cannot use the cedi to settle, some of those expenditures. So how do we get the dollar? That is the question facing it. Secondly, remember that this government in particular criticize other governments when they had one oil field, when we had Tarek bearing, and when we had Single Spine taking so much, when indeed we had a situation with gas supply. We coined one word, and they were keen on it, doing so to describe that situation, and not excusing the government. Did not excuse the government, did not give room. Everything was said to be. What has changed? They had 2-3 oil fields, as I said. So it isn't as if they did not have revenue. They had $200 million US balance to pay off the coupon bond. As we speak, I doubt if there will be anything to meet the zero coupon bond in 2025. That's the sort of performance. They had ESLA, which should have cleared, the arrears. You can Google for yourself. In January 2017, it was admitted that there was enough money to pay for the energy sector debt, contractors and the rest from ESLA. What happened? That money was turned into, the flows were turned into a bond, the money received in advance. We did not make those expenditures. And again, we come back, we can repeat it. The World Bank is telling us that our situation, and I wish the World Bank itself had told us this. But there is this clarification coming, because remember the World Bank president, when we wanted debt forgiveness, said, come for debt suspension. You're a middle income country, and we didn't get it during COVID, after the $5 billion. So I'm saying that we have current situations. That is one. how are we going to pay wages? Negotiations, have merely been suspended for teachers to the UTAC and the rest to go back.
Right.
There will be negotiations. How are we going to pay our arrears? The country has come to this situation, and the country usually presents its own position, like we did with the homegrown policy.
Right.
If you don't want to go to the IMF, right, and we can introduce that topic, where is the alternative? We wanted to present a homegrown policy, but what happened was we had to be pragmatic about the situation when the World Bank, the EU, and others, withheld budget support and said that we do not have much confidence, in the program that you have put in place. You remember the policy credibility issue.
Right.
So the question is, for the minister is, where is the alternative? If we say we are not going to the IMF, that is what we are talking about.
And those are the alternatives that they're going to be debating, whether to go the way of the IMF, whether to do the e-levy, or whether to do a combination of the two, or maybe even introduce something else that we've not brought into the fray yet, as far as this discussion is concerned. But I want to pin you down on that point again. So is it to say the CD is hopeless against the dollar? China has its own way of dealing with the dollar. In fact, sometimes they devalue their own currency for their own benefit, for the benefit of the economy. Russia, yes, we talk about the fact that they can't make international payments in rubles and all of that, but at least they have the equivalents to make the payments. In our case...
No, but remember, if I may interject quickly,
right,
remember that when the sanctions started, the first thing that the Russian Central Bank did was to allow interest rates to go up.
Right.
In response, quickly.
Right.
Yes, so you are right. These measures, when the crisis comes, all countries, the mighty US we are talking about, to protect that dollar, right? As of yesterday, was raising interest rates for the first time.
Right.
In many years.
True.
Yes. So where is our measures? You are not telling us about the measures that even, economies that are very strong. The UK started adjusting interest rates a while ago because of the COVID recovery, which you mentioned in your introduction, which was going to bring pressure. Now, when these strong economies start adjusting, and as you said, that is going to pose additional pressure. Okay. So the question is, you see, we are flagging this point. Should we go to the IMF or not? The government has said we are not going to the IMF. Well, we've heard Gabi, he's a government rep, but we've heard him saying that everything is now on the table. If reality is setting in, yes, then we can consider that a hybrid. That hybrid was something we attempted. The instrument that is used with Kenya and others is called the policy support, instrument, where you come out with your own policy.
Right.
You ask the fund because they are giving you the credibility to go to the market. That is it. The word that, remember, they criticize us so much that we want to the fund policy credibility. The Fitch is not going to believe anything you are telling them now. That's why they are downgrading you. So you need that credibility support, that credible support, to go to the market. So government has ruled out going. What is the alternative?
What is the alternative?
Bank of Ghana has been implementing some of them. You can see that, interest rates, and others, and then the inflation is now showing. The reason for the inflation is the crude oil prices and the rest. So Statistical Service, Bank of Ghana, and others, where is the policy from the Ministry of Finance, the alternative? I think that is what we should be posting to the minister.
And I think the alternative is what we are all, interested in. But I want to very, very quick...
Well, hopefully the cabinet meetings and things going now will come up with that bold alternative.
Hopefully. Yes. But I want your quick reaction. You've mentioned the ratings agencies about twice now. Do you agree with Ken Ofori-Atta when he says we need to go into emergency mode to reform the global financial architecture, specifically referring to the credit rating agencies and how we are beholden, so to speak, to them? Mind you, they don't come to us or foist this on us. We go and pay big money to get them rate us, because based on the back of the same ratings, we're able to go on the global market and get loans and all of that. He's saying we should change the architecture. What could he possibly mean? I mean, do you agree with him?
We can explain that. But let me repeat again. It is immaterial to where Ghana is today. You cannot change that overnight. China, cannot change it overnight. Do you know that when we go to CDB to borrow, CDB itself, the China Development Bank, which has been financing China exit, do you know that like our bond, which is rated, do you know they go to the capital markets, the same capital markets to borrow? And that's why they're able to give us a blend at a very low rate. As Cocoa Board, is a good example if you discipline yourself, right? So I'm saying that that issue was raised by His Excellency the President already in Addis Ababa, if you remember, when there was the AU. Yes.
Right. That they are being unfair to us and all of that.
Exactly. You need other countries. But let's be cautious. If Africa has its ratings agency, where is the depth of the African market compared to London Stock Exchange, compared to
the FTSE
New York Stock
Index,
Exchange, compared to Shanghai and the rest? It will take time to build that. And I'm saying that debate, I'm not saying it's not relevant, overall, but it's a long-term debate for the entire continent, for ECOWAS, to come out with the echo. The question we are asking now, of the government is, where is the alternative if you are not going to the IMF? It's a simple question.
Right before we get into that, and that might not be so simple, because if it were that simple, I mean, I'm sure they would have answered it by now. It's convoluted and it's tricky. But have we waited too long, for far too long, to make this economic call for a dialogue? And even then, it's not bipartisan, like former President Mahama and others have called for. I've hosted Roxanne Nelson, Dafia McBoy, and others here who have said that.
Remember some stalwarts
invite us.
Some stalwarts within the MPP, Mr. PNM and others have been pointing to the need for us, to come to grips.
But as of now, the stance is we're going to pick the brains, finance and economic brains within our party. And a la the Senchi consensus, we're going to Peduase to brainstorm and see whether we can find solutions for the country. So first of all, have we waited too long? Have we waited too long?
No, there's a difference. There's a quick one. There's a difference. At Senchi, it was not government alone. Senchi was after
I'm not intimating that. I'm saying that in reminiscent of that, though, I mean, the likes of Mr. Pianim and others, were there. Others, I hear, attempted to be there, but were told not to, appear. But
President Mahama has said that we will be there if we are invited.
Right.
To show his sincerity when he invited the then opposition, and they refused to come. He has said that.
Have we waited too long? Has this administration waited too long to come up with this?
Absolutely. If you are being told by no less a personality, like the World Bank country director, and the bosses in Washington, right, putting a bit of diplomacy aside, but saying it in as diplomatic a manner as possible, that before COVID, you had the situation. And let me mention what they are saying. They mention only one item. They're saying that we had arrears, which was tantamount to 5% of GDP. Remember, some of us said the 2020 deficit should be 15-16%. Government adamantly said it was 11%. For the same reason, because the gap was disclosed in 2019 and there was no solution to it. So if you add that, they are 5%. To the government's 11%, you add the 16%, which we're talking about. So if the deficit in 2020 was 16%, and remember, instead of the arrears going up, the arrears for 2021 was lower, much, much lower than 2020. And then for 2022, you can check. Now that we are talking about these things, please ask your producers to go and check the figures. They're in the budget. Even we are saying that, from 3 billion, the arrears is just 1.9 billion, not dollars, but Ghana cedis.
Right.
We are told. So one of the corrections that has to be made in terms of candidness is what is the true arrears, which must be added to the deficit if we have to do an adjustment.
Add to that, how problematic is it that this is not bipartisan or even multi-partisan? It is the same group of people saying we're going to think about the same solutions. The same group of people that has not been able to find solutions yet. That is not to denigrate what they're going to do, but How problematic is that?
Well, I reckon that the situation might change. I reckon. Remember, we are still waiting for Sona. We're still waiting, and we are in March. And in 2015, March, when we did the 2016 budget, 2016 March, when we did the budget for, 2015, when we did the budget, at the time we were doing the 2015 budget in November, crude oil prices fell from $99, and down, to below $30 and then crept to 35, and it never recovered until 2017. We went to Parliament around the same time to make a statement, and to trim down expenditure. You said we'll talk about expenditure. We trimmed down expenditure. If you remember, in order that I might not be seen to be pontificating, let me tell you that we were going into the 2016 elections when President Mahama announced that we were not going, to complete all the 200 e-schools. And he said it was on account of non-performance. No, it was the realism of the external economy hitting us. He did say that we would target 120, but finish completely 50, right? And then should we have won, then we would. Remember, back then we were talking about free SHS, the progressively fee-free, education, high school, education, right? So we're saying that the precedent is there. And so the answer, I brought this point to show that, and those came after a similar cabinet meeting to see the situation.
Right.
So now that we are seeing the effect, I envisage that, there would be two things coming out of this. Either we are going to seek for help. Remember when we talk about going to the IMF, it's not just the IMF, because when you go to the IMF, we just said it, you are sending a signal, that you have a policy to Fitch, it's not just Fitch also, it is the equity funds. You are in the global market, who gave you money, whose debt you must now service. And they are saying that your policy is not credible enough. That expression is in the Fitch statement. In fact, that expression, right, is in the MPC report for May 2021. Go and read it. When the 1 billion 2020, when 1.7 billion US dollars equivalent was being given by the central bank in support of the government, and then subsequently, if you read some speeches by the MPC and by the governor, they've always pointed to the fiscal challenge that we are facing. So it's not just Fitch. When we want, I mentioned the World Bank president and the rest. So I envisage that there would be either a comprehensive plan to tell the nation that we are not going to the IMF, this is our plan, similar to the homegrown. Let's see whether it will be credible. Otherwise, we may come and say, well, this is the realism. We exited the IMF. We went to the same IMF for their 1 billion loan. We went to the IMF for their 1 billion SDR. It is time to go to the IMF again. You see, the test of not going to the IMF is known when you come into funds and you have sufficient money.
Right.
Including ESLA, including...
It's precisely when you don't have it.
It is when you have your crisis.
Right. Let me just find out from you. And you have been in crisis situations before, so you are pretty much an expert in this arena.
Every minister has been in crisis situations.
Right. And I concede that. If you were Ken Ofori-Atta, would you support this e-levy, as people have called it, double taxation? You've spoken about the IMF and what it would take. We can't go with bare hands. We would need policy to show how we are trimming down. For example, it's been said that we have a top-heavy executive or a top-heavy, arms of government in terms of spending. But would you have supported the e-levy or some mix of the e-levy?
I have a position on that. And the situation has not changed. And so, no, I don't think I can support it in its current form. And let me give you my two main reasons.
Which form would have been okay for you?
That's what I'm explaining. First of all, one, it is taxing savings. And we have never taxed savings, even in our direst of situations. We have three efforts. We should tackle other expenditure first. And then, but the fundamental opposition to it is that it is distorting the tax regime and it is taxing savings.
Right.
It is saying that after you receive your wages, you sitting down there right now, and multimedia has deducted the PAYE and paid it to the government.
Right.
The money that's in your pocket by merely transferring it, not because you are using it for expenditure, which must be taxed, not because you are using it to earn income through trading or owning a taxi or whatever, which must be taxed, but by merely taking what you have saved, a tax is being imposed on it. Secondly, we have had temporary taxes and levies, and I'm not going to deny it, ESLA and the rest, right? They were supposed to be temporary. This government did not, even when they had 3 oil fields, right? They did not make, they did not allow the temporary taxes that we imposed when crude oil prices fell and others. They did not suspend, they did not remove them. And let me give you enumerate them. First of all, there was ESLA, which was to last 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Now it has been extended through the ESLA bond to beyond, 10 years. There was a temporary import duty, which we started reducing. It was never removed. There was a fiscal stabilization levy. Remember, it has been increased through what you call the, another levy, NHIL levy. There were so many other levies. And these are becoming permanent. We are not being told, that's my second reason. We are not being told that we have a crisis now, as we have been doing in the past from President Rawlings' time,
right?
Tabuchwe, through he spoke recently, through Osafo Mafo, Honorable Osafo Mafo, and through Banre Edu all the way. And I'm mentioning for you to know that it is not just
and I agree. You've spoken about.
Yes.
I mean, in the past there has been talk about the sunset clauses and all of that. We don't even know when some of these will come to an end. But do share with me. So the e-levy is not the way to go. The IMF would come with its own conditionalities. In the immediate term, if you look at our tax components on petroleum, for example, I want us to briefly look at that.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that tax is not part of the solution.
Right.
Tax will have to be part of the solution, but it has to be a tax, which is not distortionary, a tax which is not punitive.
And that is why,
in effort to use the word, a tax which is not a nuisance.
That is why I want to put this to you. A deputy energy minister, Andre Japamersa, has said that some of the tax components on petroleum can go, about 3 of them. When you look at our tax breakdown on petroleum alone, some 2 cedis per litre on each litre you purchase, which ones would you say should go?
Remember, some of those, first of all, some of those, taxes are what constitutes ESLA. We just spoke about it.
Right.
And they should have gone a long time ago. But the difficulty you are going to have is that unless they were not part of the undertaking that was given again to the same capital markets, right? And we got a price, for ESLA, which the current minister, took. Unless they are not part of what was used to support, the ESLA bond. Let's get it clear. When you talk about ESLA bond, you are using those revenues, to support that bond, which you took, which did not go into paying the bailout costs and the energy sector costs and the rest for the banking sector.
So which ones should go?
The contractors.
Which ones should go?
No, the government should tell us. He should be specific. I'm telling you that the difficulty in making any of them go is that the bulk of them are supporting a loan now, unless you want to default, because you have a difficulty with.
So it's not. In other words, it's not practical to let any of them go. It's not practical.
Well, let them tell us, because I'm giving you the reason why they should tell us. I'm not going to speculate, because they should tell us. I'm saying they have used. Look, it's like you using your salary to go and get a loan, right?
Right.
And then you have a crisis at home and you keep promising that, oh, look, I'm going to use part of that salary, to alleviate the problem at home. The problem with government is just like a problem, your wife will ask you, tell me, is it the money? How are you going to pay the loan? Are you going to default, right? By the way, it may be deducted as source. So I'm saying that if the deputy minister says some are going to go, he should tell us. Where is the Minister for Finance?
Finally, I know you've written on this. This is my very final bit to you, Seth Tekbe. How do we insulate our economy from skyrocketing fuel prices? If you can do that in less than a minute, I'd be grateful. Just go straight for the jugular. How do we insulate our economy from skyrocketing fuel prices in less than a minute?
You build up revenues for subsidy, which we attempted to do, but you take what you call, that is just a short-term firefighting.
Right.
Okay. Then you put in more structural measures. And our approach was to start the strategic stock, which I mentioned. It is not the absolute, but it comes in the mix, and it helps. And it helped us to stop petroleum queues. I'm afraid the way we are going, we may reintroduce petroleum queues. Because if there's no forex to pay the BDCs who are bringing in, the fuel, the oil marketing companies and the rest, then I'm afraid we are heading back into that situation.
Honorable Seth Tekbe, thank you so much for making the time, waking up so early to have a conversation with me on the AM show. Always refreshing.
I sincerely hope that cabinet will come out with some, credible solutions, for the way forward.
And whatever decisions they arrive at, we'll come back to you and get your take on that. But thank you so much, Seth.
Thank you very much.
That has been a former Minister for Finance and Economic Planning. He's been in the hot seat before, Seth Tekbe. He shared his thoughts. The conversation, of course, continues as the Economic Management Team Cabinet meets to Georgia on that matter. Do stay with us. We're not done yet. There's a whole lot more to digest when it comes to the Oliver Mause Baka-Vomawo issue. And on the last leg of the show, we have a lot more coming your way. Do stay. Well, here we are. We're back and we're talking about Oliver Mause Baka-Vomawo and what has transpired post that post playing on words on social media and his being labeled a coup monger. Well, he's been granted bail. Initially, he still had to remain in custody on the back of certain signings that had to be done and certain confirmations on his bail sureties. Well, all of that done now, and he posted on social media with some image on social media with a lot of responses, if you like. But joining me in the studio, I have here my own colleague, Joseph Akable, and he will be walking us through what exactly has transpired over these last few weeks that Oliver Baka-Vomawo has been in custody. We also have lawyer Bobby Banson joining the conversation. He will be telling us about the legal dimensions to what we've seen and what we can expect. Can the state prosecute? Do they have what it takes? We'll find out. But let's start in the studio. Mr. Akable, a very good morning.
Hello, Ben. Good morning.
Yeah, you like that. Mr. Akable.
It makes me feel a bit old.
I intentionally did that. Anyway, let's get into the serious matters. What exactly has transpired within the last few weeks that Oliver Baka-Vomawo has been in custody? What in fact led to that? Just a quick take on the entire trajectory.
I mean, there have been a number of Facebook posts. I mean, Oliver Baka-Vomawo is quite active on social media, and so he made a series of Facebook posts, one which indicated that if the e-levy policy is passed, he will do the coup himself. There are others that he had welcomed.
Useless military.
Useless military. There are others that he had welcomed coup d'etats in various countries, among other things. And so on February 11, he arrived in Ghana from the United Kingdom. When he got down, he was arrested at the Kotoka International Airport. Now, this was on a Friday. On Monday, the state took him to the district court at Ashaiman, where he was slapped with a charge of treason felony. Now, the fact that was filed, attached to the charge sheet that was filed, indicates that the allegation is that the Ashaiman police received a complaint that an individual, that is Oliver Baka-Vomawo, was inciting members of the Fix the Country group to engage in the overthrow of government. And so the police said they mounted a surveillance, and afterwards they saw a series of posts that they believe amounts to inciting his followers to stage that coup.
Right.
The fact sheet ends by saying that in furtherance of that objective, he arrived in Ghana on February 11, and that is how come he was arrested. And so the police told the Ashaman District Court on the 13th that they were continuing with investigation. And so, I mean, at that point in time, his lawyers had asked that he be left to go, in simple terms, because the argument they had made was that when he was arrested on Friday, it meant that the 48-hour rule per the Martin Pebu and Attorney General case would have meant that he should have been taken to court either on a Saturday or on a Sunday. But they rather took him to court on Monday. They also make the argument that if you read the constitutional requirements, he should be taken to court. And they say that in the interpretation section of the Constitution, a court is defined as one of competent jurisdiction. And so their argument was that he should have been taken to a court that has the capacity to make pronouncements that affect his liberty.
Exactly.
But the court disagreed and
that has to do with the bail term.
The bail term. So the court disagreed and remanded him into police custody. Then his lawyers filed an application for habeas corpus at the Tema High Court. And at the Tema High Court, they were simply saying that, look, when he was even remanded at the district court, they actually, the judge's order, they said the order didn't say that he's been remanded into police custody. And so it meant that the police did not have a warrant to have kept him. But nonetheless, they kept him in their custody.
They kept him all the same.
All the same. And also raising issues about the fact that he was not taken to a court of competent jurisdiction, in their opinion, within the 48 hours. The Tema High Court disagreed with them and advised that they should actually make an application for bail, just like the district court had also advised. But they sought the intervention of the Supreme Court, seeking a certiorari to quash the Tema High Court decision. And the Supreme Court disagreed with them as well, saying that there was nothing wrong with the decision of the High Court. If they have concerns, then the appropriate issue to do is to either appeal that decision at the Court of Appeal, because the certiorari they were seeking to do, there was no obvious error that requires the intervention of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court at that level also did advise that they should make an application for bail, and also questioned what they called the lawyers being engaged in an intellectual exercise when the liberty of an individual was at stake. So that was at the Supreme Court. Then after the Supreme Court decision, they went to the High Court this time, make an application for bail, where they explained that he's going to show up. But it's worth pointing out that the Supreme Court, the justices asked the AG's office whether they will be opposed to bail should an application be made at the High Court. The Deputy AG, Diana Sunamba Dapa, told the court that the state may not oppose bail if it goes to the High Court. But we saw subsequently that at the Tema High Court, when the application for bail was filed, the state opposed it and accused Oliver Bakabama of not cooperating with investigations. And so, in between making that argument at the Tema High Court, the case went back to the Ashaman District Court, where the committal is supposed to take place. And at that level too, we know that the prosecutors didn't show up on that day. And the magistrate, she's actually a circuit court judge sitting as an additional magistrate, expressed reservations about the conduct of the prosecutors and calling for seriousness to be attached to this particular
case. That they were not showing up and all of that.
And all of that.
Which also put into question, the processes leading to his bail, because once they were not showing up, it had implications on the entire process.
So this was at the district court. Then back at the High Court for the ruling, Justice Daniel Mensah granted Oliver 2 million cedi bail with two sureties. One is to provide the documents, which was what became a new controversy that was supposed to be justified, and it took a bit of time. That's according to the police. But if you listen to the Face the Country movement, they believe that it was part of a grand scheme. So this is by way of the key about 7 timelines of where we've come from since February 11, and we know that yesterday he got his temporary freedom of sorts eventually.
Right. And with that, charge of treason felony hanging over his head, I really don't know how he would be feeling. But I guess at some point we would get to interact with him. But let me bring in Bobby Banson now. He's a lawyer. Bobby, so you've clearly followed this case. I would just like your initial reaction to all that has transpired, culminating in Oliver finally getting bail, the 48-hour requirements, and even the talk from the likes of Akoto Ampao and others that clearly he may have been talking and he may have said certain things that he shouldn't have, but in the end, was he capable of actually staging a coup? But let's start with what your understanding is of what has happened throughout up to this point.
Good morning to you and to your viewers and listeners. I think your colleague, Mr. Kable, has narrated the sequence of events very clearly and puts the discussion in that very good context. I'll be too careful to try and discuss whether he's capable of carrying out the threat he put on his Facebook page or not. That would be, for me, purely speculative. It's a factual issue.
I was merely talking about something that one of his own counsel, I'm talking about Akoto Ampao, had said, you know, pointing to the fact that, yes, it may have been reckless comments, but was this serious? Was this an individual? I mean, I was just alluding to that.
Yes, I understand. But, you know, as him being counsel, of course, that will be one of the defenses that they would put up. And I will not begrudge them if they do. At the end of the day, the courts would have to look at whether or not there was any intention behind the statement he made. Whether he's capable of staging the coup or he's not capable of staging the coup is a burden on him or his counsel to prove. And if the fact is that he had communicated an intention to, is that in itself a fact that somebody could be tried on for treason? So I would want to leave that aspect, except that with the for what lawyers would refer to as the legal gymnastics that have gone on in an attempt to procure him bail. I think it's a further improvement of our jurisprudence on this subject. Mr. Martin Pebu, before this, you would recall that the position of the law had been that certain offenses are unbailable.
Right, non-bailable offenses.
Pebu went to court, yes, for the Supreme Court to say no, every offense is bailable.
Right.
So if this matter had happened pre-Martin Pebu versus Attorney General, then we wouldn't have even been talking about bail, because then the court would have said, listen, it is under Section 96 unbailable. But once that 96 was struck out by the Constitution, by the Supreme Court because of Senior Pebu's brief, then the issue of whether it is bailable does not come in. Now, if it is bailable, what are the conditions that must be set? It's purely at the discretion of the judge. If the trial judge gives conditions for bail and the accused person thinks that those conditions are harsh, burdensome, and impracticable, he has a right to appeal against the bail conditions and even apply for bail pending that appeal. So the procedure is quite clear. At the end of the day,
do you feel, Lawyer Bobby Bansard, for the sake of time, do you feel we've made a mockery of, in a way, I mean, in the end, bail has been granted Oliver Barker-Vormawor, but the Martin Pebu decision, and of course, you've talked about what exactly it took to get to this point in our jurisprudence, but do you feel we've made a mockery of that ruling in terms of how we've handled Oliver Barker-Vormawor and the officers who should sign, or the officers who should be appearing in court and all of that, who have not done so? Was this victimization, if you like, or taking advantage of the powers of state to sort of punish an individual who spoke out of turn? I want you to be blunt with it.
You know, let me be very blunt. What happened to him in satisfying the bail conditions in terms of the administrative procedures is not peculiar to him. It's unfortunate that it happened to him, but I'll be lying if I say that it happened. He's the only one that has suffered these consequences. The ordinary Joe, every time.
But the fact that others suffer it also, that doesn't normalize it. I mean, does it? It doesn't normalize it.
No, it's because you said whether he's been. It's because you said whether he's been victimized. I'm not saying it is right.
Right.
Because of the perception that they are doing it to only him.
Right.
And that is what I sought to say. That I don't think that any person that has experienced the criminal justice system in Ghana would say that it's happening because it is Oliver. It's unfortunate it has happened. It is wrong. It must be condemned. But it is not only him. The administrative procedures must be changed. Because, for instance, when the court gives the bail condition that it must be secured with a landed property, the surety who brings the landed property would bring his documents. The court registrar must confirm that the documents are genuine. It is only the Lands Commission that can certify documents as genuine.
Right.
So depending on the time of the day that you bring these documents to the court registrar, the court registrar will now have to send it to the Lands Commission. And the Lands Commission is not digital. It's not as if they go behind a laptop, they type the name, and it shows whether it is genuine or not. It's manual. They have to go and look for the file and pull it up. So in that instance, it gets out of the hands of the registrar of the court.
Right.
So for instance, if you bring your document at 2 p.m. and the Lands Commission closes, let's say 4 p.m. or 5 p.m.
So all of that
before
comes,
the registrar
comes
gets
into the
there,
picture.
Exactly.
Right.
So I would not say that it is the best system, but I would also be slow to say that they intentionally did it to delay Mr. Oliver. I would be very slow to, because every person that has experienced the criminal justice system, especially satisfying bail conditions, will tell you that it is not strange.
It's not strange. It's not straightforward. Permit me, Bobby Banton, to just wrap the conversation with you on this. Now, looking at everything that has happened, some have said treason, felony. I mean, when it comes to murder, for example, you must prove beyond reasonable doubt, because the penalties for same are long-standing. They can impact someone's life very negatively. Again, when it comes to treason, felony, we are bordering on the same lines. You must prove beyond reasonable doubt. Some have said that the state does not have watertight, ironclad evidence in this instance. What is your reading of that?
I think like every criminal matter, the burden on the state will be, like you said, to prove beyond reasonable doubt. From the facts that is available to the public, what has been contained in the charge sheet, I don't want to think that the state, or I'll be slow to conclude that the state will be able to discharge that burden based on the facts available to the public.
Right.
But this is a security matter. If the state would have further evidence that they've not yet made available to the public because of the security nature of it, then we will not want to belittle their case. Mind you, it will be very strange for the Republic of Ghana, with the involvement of the Attorney General, to bring a charge as sensitive as treason when it does not have evidence to support it. They better, withdraw the charge or enter nolle prosequi.
We've seen, though I want you to wrap quickly on this, we've seen in the past instances, you remember the earlier accounts of Dr. Do you remember his name? McPalm? Yeah. Dr. McPalm and others. I mean, where has that ended? It's still, but I'm just saying that it's not been executed.
Yes, but I think the trial is still ongoing on that. There's a treason trial that I'm aware is still ongoing in respect of that. And so I would want to see the evidence that the state would come up. But it would be very interesting for our constitutional and criminal justice system if the state decides to enter nolle prosequi because it doesn't have the evidence to support the charge. Then we'll all sit and say, okay, so you were wasting everybody's time. And then the gentleman would have a right under the Constitution to sue for wrongful detention, as it were, for the period that he has spent and get damages. We have that precedent in our system.
Bobby Banton, it's been insightful. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. We're grateful. I'd also like to say thank you to Joseph Akable for walking us through what exactly has been happening. I am itching, for someone interested in legal matters, I am itching to see how this eventually pans out, because it adds to our jurisprudence. It also adds to how exactly we tackle some of these matters moving forward. Thank you so much, Joseph. Well, coming up next, we're going to be talking about a figure who has been here for a quarter of a century. In the media space, I mean. You want to know whom? Stay with us. She's up next. You know her, you've not seen her yet, but 25 years. And if you remember back then, GBC, she's a voice you couldn't have missed. She's feminist, and she stands unrepentantly for, women's affairs and pushing women forward. Today, we're going to be sharing her story of 25 years of media work, philanthropic work, and the motivation to put pen to paper and write books. And she's been writing. She's an inspiration, actually. Well, I'm talking about no other person than Oheneyere Gifty Auntie. And there she is in your shot. She takes a quick peek at me. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And I was teasing her earlier that she's not been looking for me nowadays since I came back on the AM show. So
what's even
if Mohammed will move to the mountain will move to Mohammed.
Exactly.
And then what time?
You know, when you said, you talked about my books and she said motivation, I looked at you. How long have we been talking about you writing?
That's a story for another day. But wow. You know, I've known this, but sometimes it takes that to hit you. Yeah. For a quarter of a century, you've been doing this in the media. And the standpoint is still, I was watching you the other day, you know, doing your thing, and I was just thinking, hey. And you're still so evergreen. But tell us, what has the experience been like 25 years of being in the media?
It's been a mixed pot, as they say. I mean, twists and turns and joys and sorrows. But it's been life. It's been almost half of my life, you know. So that I grew up on it. I went into the media when I was 27 years. I mean, professionally. And now I'm 52, you know. So you can, you know, calculate 25 years. It's been a learning curve. It's been...
You're still learning?
I'm still learning. I'm still learning a lot, especially in these days, learning a lot. But it's been a rich experience that I don't think I would want it to go waste, but rather to impact it and motivate and mentor others to go into it.
And I suppose that is why you've also had all of these mentorship programs. I know your children and mentees are so many, but tell us about some of those, the activities you've had in terms of mentoring other, especially young ones coming up who would want to walk in your footsteps.
No, I'm one of the mentors for YALI, Barack Obama's YALI program, and aside that, I speak in schools. I have, for a long time, students from the universities during their vacation, the long break, they come to me, my, outfit.
I've seen some of them personally. I can attest to it.
To come. There are some too who do it from a long distance, through emails, through WhatsApp chat, and some who just pass through. You know, so this time after 25, one of the activities or the programs that are planned, lined up for to mark this milestone is to mainstream it.
Okay.
Mainstream it and go out and do professional mentoring.
It's open to everybody?
Not everybody. Do you have to come through registering? You know, we will launch it properly, but through registration. But basically for young people in the media or in the communications space or who want to go into communication. You and I have talked about this when people say, oh, I want to be a journalist, but your mentor is somebody in a different field altogether.
Right. How does that add up?
Exactly. So I'm going to mainstream it and do proper training, proper hands-on, practical, experiences, give them that. So that's part of the program.
Is that the next phase of Gifty Auntie? Is this something you're going to, we're going to see maybe in the next 25 years? Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? But it's starting this year anyway. It will start this year. Right. Hopefully by July, we'll start.
And we'll talk about other things that you're doing to mark 25 years, your book launches, and you're going rich on that. Kudos to you. But let's talk a bit about your philanthropic work as well. That's another aspect of Gifty Auntie that some know, others don't know. Right. What have you been up to in that regard?
Well, I have 3 charities now. I have the Girl in Need Foundation. 3, yes, which is about 10 years now. We help girls 18 years and below go back to school, and then those who want to learn trade or skill, we support them to do it. Sometimes some of them are in the tertiary institutions, and we support them. Those in primary, junior high and senior high, most of the time we take the full, bouquet, as you used to say on Joy, the full bouquet, pay for everything. Now there's free SHS, but then some of them, they come in, you need to buy chalkboards, you need to buy trunk, you need to buy toothbrush, sponge, and everything because of the area.
And for those who will tell you don't tax our periods, sanitary pads and all
exactly.
Of that. That's a big problem.
It's a huge
problem that we downplay.
Huge problem.
Have you had to assist in that regard?
Oh, yes. We buy all that. I didn't want to go that. We buy sometimes even underwear. We buy all that for them, And then I have the Award Answer Reading Project that's helping children in rural communities fall in love with reading. Not just the educational stuff, but storybooks. Because you and I have talked about this before. Storybooks opens your mind to a great, it takes you on an adventure.
You pick a book and it takes you into a different world. You are not there, but you're in let me use Russia or Ukraine or some other part of the world that you've actually never been to.
Yeah, and it helps you to dream and dare to follow your, dreams that people will think will be, are out of your reach, but it spurs you on to want to be something that you do not see in your community. Yeah, and then the final one is Happy Feet. Christmas, I collect brand new shoes for children in rural communities. Just yesterday, somebody, why do I insist on brand new shoes? Because people ask for used clothes for children in rural communities. I said, no, because they deserve the best. They deserve the best as well. And we need to teach them that to go for the best in life. We can't keep people, motivated when we are always giving them handouts. We need to let them know that somebody believes in them, get them to believe in themselves and strive. So everything I do, Girl in Need Foundation, Our Dancer Reading Project, Happy Feet, it's all about making sure people believe in themselves and dare to break the bias, whichever way, both male and female, break beyond their dreams, think outside the box, and sometimes create a box for themselves.
Right. True. True.
Don't stay in that societal created box. You can create your own box. Get out of it. Get out of it and create your own box and operate from it.
And I see you feeding in the International Women's Day theme for this year, break the bias. And in our society, there are so many areas we can do that. But 25 years in the media, you've also ventured into writing.
Yes.
And your latest that you are, putting forth.
Yeah.
Room 5005.
Yes.
That's an interesting one. And you also have Broken but Beautiful. Where did these come from? Life experiences? Because I saw the book you put out at 50. I was there as we reviewed it on another platform.
Yeah.
What inspired these two?
Room 5005, lots of people want to find out whatever. You need to buy it, but to read it. It's about my days in mandatory quarantine, 14 days. Yeah. People just take a lot of things for granted, but that was a harrowing experience. That book, when you read, takes you down, memory lane and makes you sit down and analyze. It's good for politicians. It's good for church leaders. It's good for people like you and I in public space, because some of the lessons in there is that sometimes whatever respect, dignity, or whatever you get, it's because of the position you're in there.
Right.
Once you
get out,
nobody. The plot is the African Region Hotel, and I must say thank you to them for really endorsing this book and going all out to support me. Where I started my program, The Standpoint, for 5 years, I hosted The Standpoint there. And I was the queen even before I married a chief. I get then everybody's fussing over me. And because of COVID, everybody was running away from me. They didn't want to know. I was treated like...
The very same people always want to, be around you. We're now running away.
Where they run and get me the best glass and juices, and now will just bang on my door and dump my food in plastics and, a polythene bag and leave it and run quickly. 7 days in a room without opening windows. Those were early days of COVID-19. So a lot happened. Let me tell you this, you, my brother, I was going to say it during the day. Up to today, the dress I wore when I got to Ghana, the jacket, the jeans, are still at African Region Hotel. I haven't had the courage to go for it. That's how traumatizing the experience has been. Wow. Yeah.
And I've had people share stories of near depression.
Yeah.
On the back of the one time I have had COVID, and when I recovered, I made mention of it. It's not a pleasant experience when you're I'm an ambivert, a bit of introvert, a bit of extrovert. But trust me, sometimes when you're forced to be in that situation, it's something else.
Yeah, having the condition, some of the people had it after the early stages. I'm sure in your case, but for us, it was the early.
Right.
With
all those protocols.
People ask me why I'm launching and releasing on Tuesday. That day, 22nd of March, will be exactly 2 years. I arrived in this country with one of the last flights. That was a midnight. Ghana closed its borders for 6 months. And you get to the airport. So I talk about the journey there, the scene at the airport. You get them people, ministers, you've hosted them on shows and everything. And now everybody wants to, they just don't want to. And strict. I saw my own, national security minister, uncle kind up on my uncle. Oh, Ahini, you're here. Okay, get ready. You are going to quarantine straight. Even the reception and everything, the psychological, the trauma.
Right.
And the lessons learned after that. So that's...
So all of these are encapsulated in this story.
Yeah.
How about Broken But Beautiful? Very quickly on that.
Broken But Beautiful is dedicated to every woman everywhere. That is my fifth book in 25 years in public space and 2 years of writing, and I dedicate to every single woman because women go through all sorts of brokenness. And I want to do something that in my ministry, if we mention Gifty Auntie now, everybody knows, I'm for women and do that. Right. But I want to dedicate one book that every woman owns one, and when they are going through the journeys, they pick this with, at least somebody cares enough to dedicate a book to me. Self-worth.
Right.
Self-value, self-appreciation, a reminder that you matter.
You matter. We all do, don't we?
We do.
So what can we expect at this celebration? What should we be looking forward to? 25 years,
yes,
book launches.
Yes,
but what
it's amazing. Unfortunately, it's going to be limited because the space is small. I wish I could get it, but you get the significance of launching the book at the African Region Hotel. Right. So we are going straightly by invitation, but it will be streamed on Facebook Live, and so people can place their orders, buy from there. The first 500 copies, each one of them will be autographed by me. We have only limited editions of, hard cover. Limited, just about 100 of them for each one of them. So people have to place, and then the rest are paperback.
Wow.
You have to place, and during that, if there's going to be a lot, Dr. Okoboy, who was the deputy minister, then was there, and I remember he made a statement in Parliament where he mentioned my name, so his name is in there. Some of the big people, the chiefs, the pastors who were in mandatory quarantine with me are going to be there to share, and I'm also going to honor some people who have really played a role in my journey.
Yeah, the one who's usually getting honored. I've been at many of these.
Yeah, but
you also want to take time to honor others who have
they don't know, that I'm going to honor. So it's going to be a surprise, and I'm excited about it. It's taking me 25 years, but I'm glad they are alive, and I'll get the opportunity to say thank you.
So Tuesday, right? The 22nd.
Tuesday, 22nd.
Marking exactly that
5 p.m. will be live on Facebook streaming, and
this is Greenwich Meridian time, not Ghana.
Not Ghana
Greenwich Meridian.
Exactly.
All right. Just a quick thought, though. Your previous books that you have written, how are they faring?
Very well.
The Ghanaian literary market, I have published, so we know what's up. What's it doing?
It's been amazing because people like to read true life experiences. And sometimes my books are a bit too vivid. This morning I had a conversation with my husband, told him that, you know what, I'm going on live on that. You know how I do it. I know you get calls and people asking you things, but I say, this is my life. I like to use my life as an example to motivate and encourage people. So sometimes maybe I may say too much, but that's my truth. And that's my hard truth.
Right.
Because room 5 after and a lot of things happen and he may be affected small, but that's it being like that. Yeah. He has to take it like that. That's the woman he married.
Yeah, my father, sir. But hey, congratulations. Let's start from here.
Thank you.
On 25 years of rocking it in the media space and beyond, philanthropy, mentorship, and now writing.
Yeah.
More power to your elbow.
Thank you.
Okay, so I love your outfit. I see it's by Net, a brand I know.
Yes,
do you love my outfit?
I love it. That's beautiful. It's
Thank
nice.
you. And that gives me opportunity to talk about the fact that it's by Catherine Garments, Catherine Gordon. Reach out to her on 0277 580050. She's located at Medina New Road near the Rolling Circle. On Instagram, Catherine_Garments. On Facebook, Catherine Garments GH. It's been refreshing. Thank you so much.
Before you speak good English, this morning, 5 a.m.,
right.
Your niece asked me a question. I'm still thinking about it.
Hey,
she says, Mommy, why do skeletons have bones? Please think about it. Give me the answer, and then we'll do it.
I think I have to come over.
Yeah.
And on that note, why do skeletons have bones? We'll find out when we interact with the little one. Thank you so much for watching us on the AM show. It's been Friday. It's been exciting for me. I hope it's been for you too. Do have a wonderful day. God bless.